I'll start with the exam focus. So like I said, all 27 chapters have a different exam focus, primarily around the different types of verbs, but it could be it could be about definitions, illustrate, evaluate, and different areas in an exam where you could lose a couple of marks. And I suppose a couple of marks all add up, so some would probably be more important than the others, like discuss. If you got that wrong, you're probably going to lose a good few percent. But then other things, like when a question says do you agree or not, it could be a 0.5% or 0.75% gone. And it's there to really just kind of tie in all the content that's given in the book, and then have people be able to gain a couple of marks here and there and refer to it then, like I said earlier, in a class test. If they didn't get full marks for something, an exam focus section should be able to help. So I have an example of a part of my script, and it was about the verb outline. So this was 2018, and it was a question about, they gave you a little intro on Supermax and the advantages and disadvantages for a business in the fast food sector of choosing franchising. And just like what the students love here and what makes it really easy to teach is, you can, like, the red underline is where the marks are being awarded, and then the number to the side, the 2 trees, are how many marks were given. And you can see my heading there that I've given is standard/brand name. So what we're saying here, that like the point of this was that if one fast food chain doesn't do well, then the whole fast food chain could be damaged. So Supermax was the kind of lead in, and it's saying if I let someone else open a Supermax and run it under my name, that if their quality is really low, then the whole brand suffers, and every kind of each of our stores suffers. And what I've written there was standard/brand name, and I meant that, but what that is a title, and there hasn't been any statement, so there was no marks given. And it's little bits like that I wrote that and thought that's a great answer, and move on like students would. And then it's kind of highlighting that and showing you need to write, it could like lower the standards, or lower quality standards could damage the brand name. And in the exam focus sections, I kind of talk about that. So this is what a page would kind of look like, or this is the top of the page so this was for outline. So you can see there's just a general introduction about what outline is, what the statements are, what you should do in that case. And then I use a past paper question. So it was the 2018 short in this instance. And then at the bottom of the page would be some sample answers of it. So there was 6 marks going for an implication here, and you can see in sample answer 1, I've given an example of one that gets 3 marks. In sample answer 2, there's an example of one that still gets 3 marks, even though they've kind of used a title or a heading and made the same error I had made. And then in sample answer 3, they're going to get full marks for it. So it's so that students can kind of compare and contrast what a good answer is, or a better answer, or a bad answer, and so on. And I've used that kind of layout in all of the exam focuses. So it's not just showing you the best thing, it's also showing kind of common errors and where people might slip up. And then I found that students kind of relate to that a lot, because they can realise then, if you get them to read that and then they go and reread their own answer, they kind of say, oh God, yeah, I did that, or I'm just repeating the heading, or I'm just repeating the question. So I think they'll be a really useful addition to the book, and a great way to develop exam technique practically and kind of in use, and something to refer to. So with that, we also have digital resources. And as part of that digital resource for each of the 27 chapters, we have an exam focus video. So within that video, I'm basically explaining kind of what I just said there. So I'll just kind of clip forward, like they're a couple of minutes long. So this was chapter 8, and it's 3.5 minutes. And you can't hear me now, but I'm talking at this stage and just explaining the different answers and pointing out where things are. So these could be used to play in class, play yourself, before you kind of go into class, and kind of try and understand more kind of what I'm saying and stuff like that. And they're for each of the chapters, so they'll be able to show kind of within the class and outside the class. Students will be able to, you could share it with them, they'll be able to get access to them to be able to watch it, and then you'd be able to look at it before class and play it in class. Okay, so the next thing then to do with the exams was the question and answer section. So again, I'm kind of just showing a script. So it was the 2019 script this time, and an answer I'd given. So on the left, you can see that there's underlining and then marks given. And then what I've tried to do was tie that down to business then. So in each chapter then there's a past paper question, higher and ordinary, and then the marking scheme is given. and a sample answer. So within that sample answer, you can see there's red underline and then marks to the side. So it's kind of mimicking and mirroring the Leaving Cert scripts. So students, I think, really buy into that, and it's a very visual tool rather than just giving them a sample answer or telling them that what's written in the book is fine. It's kind of showing appropriate answer length, where marks are given, and how you can kind of maximise and pick up all marks. So that was one thing that we really wanted to kind of tie into the book and just get that exam kind of focus and technique and length into it alongside the content. So I refer to like the last page of each chapter as well as an important terms and keywords page, and it's kind of showing you how little you need to write. On the left is like a question on Maslow that had come up, and you can see the marks along the side. And people, like, it's a classic example there for the subject. Everyone knows loads about Maslow, loves when they see it, and then they end up writing about 3 pages on it, and there's just no need. So in about 2/3 of a page there, I was able to get 20 out of 20 from it, just by focusing in on the keywords. So like I think the question was to link in hexagon that year, so it was state, explain, and then link in hexagon. And you can see that would have been a question that an answer that students would have really overwritten on and wasted loads of time. And what I've tried to do there was apply that kind of information into the key terms thing to the side. And in that key terms thing, Maslow takes up about eight lines there to the side, down the bottom of that key terms page. And it's essentially just like a catch-all kind of cheat sheet for that chapter, what you need to know, what the keywords are for each of the topics. And I think it'll be really, really helpful for your students. Again, I kind of trialled it with my students when I was making them and writing them, and when I didn't give them a chapter with it in it, they were all asking for it because they just found it was the easiest way to study and a real quick way to kind of like practice each of the topics to know which keywords were missing. Okay, so within the student activity book, this is just an example of some of it there. It's like how it's laid out. I kind of had showed you within the book itself, but just to kind of go in a closer look, there's marking schemes and tips kind of underneath each question. And then there's appropriate space and layout like that for part 1 and 2. And then there's also a bit of scaffolding and structuring of answers so that I provide an answer with marks beside it. And then I've given them not just how much space to write in, but also like that they have to make a statement, explain it, and give a direct quotation, because that was for an ABQ. So that kind of structured response, I find, gets them students into really good habits really early on in 5th year, so that then they know what layout to use when they're answering all the questions as they work through the course.